Welcome to the DC pod. So I'm Christian, alongside me, Darcy, to cover all things basketball. Darcy, there's only one way to start this. Now, you might have thought I was actually going to let you off the hook with this one, but I'm not. So Philly played the Mavs last week. How did that go?
It was a good win for Philly, but I think people are overhyping how well Simmons guarded Doncic. I just thought Doncic had an off game, so
Oh,
I can't wait for the rematch. To be honest,
really? Well, 8 turnovers
mm,
speaks for itself. He didn't shoot too bad, but when Simmons was the primary defender, I mean, 8 turnovers is 8 turnovers. Lucas
yeah,
about as good a passer as you'll find. I remember, I'll just point out this one play that he did. He does his normal like penetrate off the pick and roll, sort of has the defender caught on his back and he can like hit the corner shooters. And in one of them,
hmm
he literally threw it straight into Tobias Harris's like chest. Like he was
yeah,
that, I guess, off, so to speak.
yeah.
I don't expect him to be that bad, but yeah, I mean, gosh,
It's an off game.
I don't
It
know.
was an off game.
I don't know if it's fair to say it had nothing to do with Ben. I mean, Ben was pretty good.
I still think Ben is tough. I'm not saying that Ben's not, but in that game, I think Embiid was the biggest problem. Like you come off that on ball, Simmons is at your back, so you got to be tight with the pill, and then Embiid's in your face, and Embiid
Yeah.
played that. I'm not going to allow the lob, but I'm also going to hedge at you, Doncic. I think Doncic in that game, what he didn't get going was his dribble into the key, hesitate, spin, mid-range jump shot, or step off floater. He didn't get any of those to go, and then that meant the guys on the wings for Philly were hanging tight on their players on the wing. And yeah, like you said, there's some poor passes. Just a bad game where he was throwing passes that weren't there. And I think he's a smart player. He'll be looking at the film next time we play them. I expect him to cover up.
Yeah. No, I'm keen for the rematch as well. Maybe Philly need to rest Embiid and Ben next time we play the Mavs to make it a close game. I don't know.
I'll take that. I'll take that.
Okay, so really this episode today, Das, is going to be an All-Star Monday preview. So it's not an All-Star weekend, it's an All-Star night this year. We basically know with the situation. So we'll predict the winners from the events. We'll look at the draft that just happened because we're recording this just before 1 p.m. on Friday. And then we'll predict, who we think will win the actual main event, the game, and we'll look at MVP winner before giving out one lock that we think's a guarantee to happen in the second half of the season. So let's get started.
Let's get it rolling.
Lead pass. Whoa! Stop it! Stop it! Do not do him like that! What are you doing, Dragons?
Parker. J.O. Smith! We just saw men fly!
Iguodala to Curry. Back to Iguodala. Up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James! LeBron James with the rejection.
Decide not to use it. Curry way downtown.
Bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot from Curry!
Play hard. Step back. Puts up the three. Got hit. Shot's good. And one. James Harden double team. And a chance for a 4-point play.
Okay, so before we kick things off with All-Star Monday preview, NBA news to go over. The main bit of news to highlight was probably the Lloyd Pierce firing. He was basically let go after, I can't think of what game Atlanta blew or they lost that was really bad.
Miami.
Yeah, correct. You're right. It was the first Miami game where they were really poor. They were sort of having a stretch run where the team wasn't buying in. It was pretty clear. Obviously, the defense was a huge issue, but just how they were playing offensively, just the cohesion wasn't there. You might look to a few injuries that disrupted the season, but it seemed as though things were heading in a pretty poor direction for the team and something sort of had to change. What do you make of the decision to let him go?
I think it was a move that I think they had to make it. It seems kind of harsh because I like Lloyd Pierce, and when I hear him talk, he seems like a guy who knows what he's talking about. But when you look at it, the Hawks are 14-20 this season, and they're 11th in the East right now. They're behind teams like Chicago, Charlotte, and New York. So looking at the face value there, you can understand why this is a time that they've made the decision to get rid of him. But they're only 2 games behind Boston. Boston are in the 5th spot, so they're only 2 games behind 5th. So I guess it could seem potentially an overreaction, but you got to look at what's kind of been happening with Atlanta this season. They've blown 11 fourth quarter leads, And to me, there's clearly a lack of trust and a lack of confidence from the best players in the coach, in Lloyd Pierce. So particularly Trae Young and Collins. It seems like, if you remember the story that came out only a month or so ago about kind of how Young and Collins in the film room were having a conflict about, Trae holding onto the ball too long. And clearly Pierce wasn't able to work that out. He wasn't able to right the ship in that sense. I think when you look at it from Lloyd Pierce's perspective, it's been a bit of a tough go for him. He was brought in to coach a team that was tanking effectively.
Yeah.
And he basically let Trae do whatever he wanted. And I think when you look at the shining points of his time there, he did a really good job developing DeAndre Hunter. He's a guy who really has been shining for them this season before his injury. And Huerta as well. He was really kind of a guy who was not spoken about in the draft process, but has turned into a really effective player. And I think he's really, really been solid for Atlanta. And I think Pierce has had a bit to do with that. With the changes they've made to the roster this year and all the money that they've spent, I think the expectations for me, they were too high for them to start so slow. For them to have this record right now, the expectations were just too high. And I can see why they made the move to get rid of him. I thought at times this year, especially in the opening weeks of the season, their starting five, their best five, looked really good. I thought they haven't got much out of Reddish. He wasn't really a starter level guy and hasn't looked like it. And for me, I'm starting to think that looks like a pretty bad draft pick, Cam Reddish. Like, I'm not really big on it. And they also picked Okongwu, who was injured in the draft process. So they're trying to say they want to win now, but they draft someone who's injured. And Bogdanovic's injury didn't really help, their slow start to the season. And the longer it goes, the more puzzling the Rajon Rondo 2 years for $15 million signing is. Like, I understand, okay, he might be helpful in the locker room to help Trae Young, but, that's a guy that you should only be paying a vet minimum. Shouldn't be paying $15 million for 2 years for a guy who's not hitting the court and not making any impact on the actual court. So the only knock probably for me on what Pierce has done to start this season is maybe more minutes for Gallo. I actually think Gallo went off in a game about 2 weeks ago when they finally gave him a bit of court time.
The Boston game.
I get it. He's been injured and no preseason for them to really integrate him into the team. But I would have liked to see more minutes for him.
Yeah,
I think on Pierce as a guy, he's a really good leader and a good speaker. I enjoy listening to him in interviews and stuff like that. I think it's a shame for him, but for him to get taken away. But they're in a win now mentality, and the reality is, if you take over a tanking team and now all of a sudden they flip the switch and they want to win now, that coach is normally never going to be there. That coach who's been with the tanking team, I don't think he sees it through. What do you think about the guy they've gone to replace, Nate McMillan?
Yeah, well, he obviously has a lot more of a reputation to him, doesn't he, than Lloyd Pierce? I mean, the unfortunate thing with Pierce is before Atlanta, he was with us in Philly. He was Brett Brown's right-hand man. So he was with us through the dark days and the process and the tanking, and he basically never got to experience a winning team. And so he went into Atlanta, as you say, they were tanking as well. Basically had to really start from scratch kind of again, and, now he doesn't get the chance to see, it through again. So it's tough for him, but, you can clearly see how the teams reacted in their last two games. They're beating Miami by double digits, and then they went up to Orlando and, were down by as much as 19, and they ended up, blowing the Magic off the court in that fourth quarter. I think they scored 37 points to win by 3 points in the end. And Gallo played 39 minutes in that match. They're actually
playing some small ball five from Gallo.
Interesting. Yeah, very interesting to see that McMillan was going to that straight away, just sort of going to some veteran guys who he trusts off the bat, which is what most seasoned coaches really do. And interesting to see that he was reluctant to actually take the position, Nate McMillan. Think there was reports that came out he was in a long meeting with Lloyd Pierce and the assistants, just talking through it all before deciding if he'd actually accept the gig. So pretty loyal guy by the sounds of it. Didn't want to seem as though he was sort of undercutting Lloyd Pierce or doing anything shady behind the scenes to jump into that role. But I think people are quick to forget that, Nate McMillan was pretty stable there for, how many years with the Pacers? 5, 6 at least. Was the main guy there when it was, Paul George and Roy Hibbert and George Hill and Danny Granger and all these guys through all those years. So, and they would consistently make the playoffs. So I think Atlanta, before looking elsewhere, said, we've got a pretty good coach here in-house. Let's give him the gig. And at least, he should be able to help us navigate this playoff run for, this season, and then maybe reassess in the off season. But yeah, given the moves they made in the off season, it's pretty crucial that no matter what happens, they got to be at least in the playoff race. I think it's a massive failure still if they, finish 10th and get knocked out in the play-in. I think they got to at least make the first round. But good to see Bogdanovic is back. Hopefully Hunt is back. Oh no, he won't be back. He had meniscus, didn't he?
Yeah, hopefully before the end of the season.
Yeah, I think what's the deal with it? If you don't get surgery with meniscus, it's like a 6-week thing, and if you do, it's like 3 months. Is that right?
He's getting injections, so it depends how he responds to those.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
So hopefully he's back as well to add to that team. But I'm curious to see if they've got some moves to make at the deadline, to be honest, Das. I'm not sure how you feel about them, but I'm pretty sure, you, even your brother Pat and I were pretty much all on board that they maybe had too many guys. So I don't know what Reddish could get back for you. Could he get back for you a helpful piece from, a team that's looking to grab a few younger guys? Is there a deal to be made with an OKC to maybe pick up a guy like George Hill? Or I don't know what OKC would want or if they'd be willing, but it doesn't feel like there's going to be many teams that are actually looking to sell this year, which makes it difficult. I mean, I can think OKC would, and probably Houston would be sellers. Other than that, I can't think of too many teams that are looking to actually sell. So interesting to see what Atlanta do at the deadline.
Maybe Minnesota too. I think when you look at their roster, I'm not sure how long they're waiting to see what's going to happen with Okongwu. Like, I'm not sure how big they are on him. They must have been. They used a big high draft pick on him, but him and Reddish together, that could be an enticing kind of couple of contracts to move in a deal. I think what you touched on about McMillan not wanting to kind of undercut Pierce as the coach. It's just interesting the way that they brought him in, and I think a lot of the blame or a lot of the kind of blame going forward comes on Travis Schlenk and the decision he made to bring in McMillan. Like, it wasn't Pierce's call to say, okay, I need another assistant coach. I need McMillan. That was management. That was Schlenk, brought him in, and it felt like they were basically preparing him to fail or giving themselves big insurance for if they weren't going great going into the All-Star break that they were going to fire him anyway and promote McMillan. I think it's a good hire now that Pierce is gone, and I do expect them to be in the playoffs. I think.
Yeah.
And the main changes that I want to see from him are where does he go with Trae Young's leadership, because it's not really clear, or definitely hasn't been working, at least, this season with him, in terms of the chemistry is not great with him and his teammates. It seems like, there's got to be a fine line drawn between he's our superstar offensive player, but he's also our point guard running our offense. And they've got to get that balance right. And I think the other key is integrating Collins more in the offense, because he is a star talent, I reckon, John Collins. And if they don't get him more involved, then I can see him out the door, either via trade or in restricted free agency. I think someone will throw a bag at him in the off season on an offer sheet, almost guaranteed. I think the Mavs would love to throw a bag at him as well. But he needs to get that sorted. The 1-2 punch with Trae and Collins, that's the key for McMillan as he goes forward in the rest of the season.
Yeah, well, that's a great point you brought up with John there. He obviously turned down the $80 million rookie extension. So guys don't normally do that unless they're pretty sure they can get more. And you can say that, tampering goes on, and it happens all the time. Like, there's no way an agent would know what the marketplace is for their players, that they don't do stuff in the hope. Some guys you can use as examples that they bet on themselves and they're not too sure if it's going to pan out. But for the most part, with a guy like John Collins, he would know. With a guy like Victor Oladipo, turning down that 2-year 45, 46 from Houston, he would know that someone could potentially give him a Gordon Hayward type deal in the off season. And that could be the same with John Collins. So interesting to see what Atlanta do with him at the deadline. He's a guy I didn't mention. We spoke about Reddish and Okongwu, but would they look to pull the trigger on a John Collins trade if it was there? And what would that even look like? I'm not too sure. So yeah, definitely something to keep an eye on with that. So we'll monitor Atlanta, that's for sure. But so far so good. The reaction has been pretty positive. They've obviously come out and won their last 2 games, and now they enter into the break, and we'll see how things are, post that All-Star break, and see if they go on a bit of a roll and secure more of a spot in that top 8 rather than hovering around that 10, 11 spot. But as you say, the thing that goes for them is that you said 2 games, 2.5 games between them and 5th, them and Boston?
Yeah, Boston in 5th. Yeah, only 2 games, not even a half.
So that's absurd.
Games. Too much talent for them not to be in that 8,
Yeah, definitely. Okay, I actually love this part of All-Star Weekend. I do. I'm a big fan of the events. So we've got the skills that is happening. So skills and 3-point are happening before the game, and then the game's kicking off and the dunk contest is happening at halftime. And then obviously they'll play out the rest of the game. So if we get started with, agreed. You've said it before. You don't like it extending over 2-3 days. It's a bit of a waste. Keep it all in the one. Have it a 3-4 hour thing, as you've said, make it more efficient. So if we're to start off with the skills challenge, there's obviously a selection of guys to choose from, be it big men, wings, or smalls. Who do you have your eye on for taking out the skills contest?
This guy right here, man, one of the most skilled players in the league. Absolute gun. Doncic, good opportunity for him to come out and show off his skills. I hope they make the course a little bit more challenging this year, because I feel like it was just too easy and ended up being a bit of like just a 3-point shootout last time. I still don't really understand with the skills comp why they are using big men. Like, let's use the most skilled players in the league, and they're all, CP3 and Doncic fit the mold perfectly. Super skilled passers, dribblers, finishers. When we talk about Randall and Vooch, what kind of like ball handling skills do they have? Like, I don't get that part of it. I get it. They want to showcase that big guys can do more than just, play in the post. It's a lot different than the old school NBA. But I want to see more skilled guys in this event in general. And one big outlier, I just go, why is Robert Covington in this? He's not an all-star. He's a 3-and-D guy. He doesn't dribble. Like, I would say he's not really that skilled, potentially. He wouldn't be in the top 100 most skilled players, I don't think, in the NBA. And that's not a knock to him as a player. It's just not his skill set. But in terms of this competition, I think it's Doncic or CP3. Those two are clear favorites, and it's just about who wants it more. Doncic is kind of a bit of a fun guy and just wants to have a laugh and do some funny stuff. I don't think he'll try too hard, but I'd like to see him try really hard and try to get a little trophy and bring it back to Dallas.
Yeah. Do Portland play somewhere near Atlanta after the...
That's what I thought. They must play there.
Because that's a fair distance for Covington to travel just for that. I don't know if he'd go there and back. Would he go like to Atlanta and then on to Miami or the Bahamas or something for the rest of the break? Like, I don't know what he'd do, but yeah, it's not, if people don't actually know, look up where Portland is. It's literally deep West Coast. Like it's probably a good 5-hour flight to get to, anywhere decent on the East Coast. So I don't know. That's confusing to me. But yeah,
maybe he'll go out and win it randomly.
Maybe he's the one that's going to, as you say, put in the most effort, given that it's going to take him the most time to be able to get there. But I've gone for a guy you've just thrown a bit of hate at, Dus. I've got my eye on Julius Randle at $6.50 to take this out. So I actually do really like his combination of speed, ball handling, passing ability. He's got improved shooting this year. I think it makes him a prime candidate that I don't see him too often being quite, outgoing and boisterous like a Luka. He seems to be all business. And that's further instilled in him by Thibodeau this year, who, we've never, ever seen him smile. So Randall, $6.50. I think he's a prime candidate to be able to get it done. And he wouldn't be the first, because I think it was Bam was the big man that won it last year. So
Sabonis got close too, I think.
Yeah, exactly. It was a battle of the bigs in the final. It was a Sabonis and it was a Bam. So, give me Julius Randle for that one. Now, 3-point contest. This takes
Your favorite.
This takes the cake for me. Absolutely love it. Favorite one was it 2 years ago where Clay beat Steph in the final? He hit like his last 5 or 6 on the rack to
So
just
good.
he's so money. I miss Clay so bad, but
Absolutely.
I'll get started by this. I'm trying not to overthink it. Really hope he's going to, continue his tremendous year. Am I sticking with Steph Curry here? $2.88, probably a boring pick. But people forget just how good he is after he missed a lot of last season. He obviously worked on his body a lot in the offseason to be able to deal with, getting that so much attention throughout games. So I think he's a little bit more built for, the regular season. I know that necessarily doesn't translate to a 3-point contest where, maybe you can grab the ball off the rack and dribble it through his legs a couple of times, then take a step back into the 3 dust. Maybe that's what he needs to do because he actually hasn't had great success winning these comps. I think this could be his 5th or 6th, and I think he's only won 1.
There's been too much pressure on him, I think.
Yeah.
Because everyone expects him to win because he is the best 3-point shooter of all time, no question. And he's got an extremely quick trigger, which you think would translate well to it. But I think the shackles are off him a bit. The nerves are off. Like, this is just have a go. And I think it'd be crazy not to think that he's the favorite in this. I mean, the way he's been shooting the ball this year, he's close to 50% from 3.
Yeah.
He's putting up like 12 a game. He's shooting as well as he's ever shot. So, Steph for me as well, 100%. I think when you look at the whole roster of players, Booker and Mitchell and Levine, I think are all capable of winning it. I think Levine's been stroking it so nicely this year, and he has been in it before, so he does know how it works. I think he's the type of guy, Levine, who would work really hard to try to win it, I think. And Book's got a bit of a point to prove. He's won it before. He reckons he got snubbed a little bit as an all-star, so he'll be trying to win. And Donovan Mitchell's been shooting the ball so lovely, all season long, and he's continuing to improve as a 3-point shooter. He got picked last or second last in the draft today, the All-Star draft as well. Yes. So that might motivate him to try to take home a little crown in the 3-point shootout. But and then when you go down to Tatum and Jaylen Brown, I just think both of them are not really suited to the quick trigger, 5 shots at one spot, move on to the next. I think those two will struggle.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the actual event itself is very unnatural. If it's not, someone passing the ball and it's catch and shoot. You're picking it off the waistline there from the side of your hip and bringing it in. So you don't get any of that during the season. Normally you're already receiving it in your shooting pocket. So a lot of guys, obviously it's a bit of an adjustment for them. And that's why you potentially see some of these great shooters really struggle. I thought Duncan Robinson was going to slaughter the event last year and he, in combination with nerves, but he said in an interview after, I don't think he made it out of the first round, but in an interview after, he just said there's such an adjustment period to be able to pick it off the rack. It's not the most natural thing, and you definitely don't experience it in a normal game. So, there is that element.
That'll lean more to Steph. He said he's been in it 5 times. He's done it more than anyone else in there. Maybe Book's done it the next most after. So those two are definitely favorites.
Yeah. Is Buddy Hield in this year? I forgot.
No.
Okay.
He won it last year. And
because I always thought the guy that wins it at least always gets a chance to come and repeat.
You would think maybe he's just taking that break off because he's sick of playing basketball with Sacramento.
True. Maybe he's getting ready to get traded. Yeah. Who knows?
Hopefully to Dallas. Yeah.
Yes. Hopefully. Okay, dunk contest. So 3, let's say, of the lesser known guys for the casual NBA fan. We've got Cassius Stanley, who barely gets minutes for the Pacers. Obi Toppin, who was their first round pick. He gets bench minutes for the Knicks. And then we have Anthony Simons, who's basically the backup point guard behind Dame. So who takes your fancy out of that crew? You get first stab at this.
Yeah, nice. These guys are still really good dunkers, despite them not being big names, especially Obi Toppin. You saw the through the legs dunks he did in college, guys. I'm really excited to see him. But I'm taking Cassius Stanley from Indiana. I think I watched a lot of him at Duke in his one season there, and his top 10 dunks, if you get a chance, go check that out on YouTube. Guy can fly. And he's also quite short. I think he's like 6'1". So something that kind of wows guys and wows the fans in the dunk contest is the small guy who has unnatural bounce, just like
Yeah.
otherworldly bounce. And this guy puts his head on the rim every time he jumps. Like he is unbelievable. So if he can throw in a bit of creativity, I really like his chances. Cassius Stanley. And I don't know, one thing that I just put in here as a note, I would love to see Zion in the dunk contest. I think everyone would. And I think it might be a thing that he could do similar to what Blake Griffin did, where at the beginning of your career, go in the dunk contest just once, dominate it, win it, and then you don't have to worry about all the pressure of everyone begging you to get in it again, like LeBron has dealt with basically his whole career. But yeah, Stanley's a guy for me, and I would love to see some Zion, but it doesn't look like we're going to see it this year.
No, I had a feeling he would be a loser like LeBron. I we're just basically tease the fans that he's going to get in it, and he never does. And you're right. I hope he does a Blake Griffin where he just does it next year or maybe the year after and just gets it, as you say, off his chest, so he doesn't have to worry about it. Doesn't have to be a storyline that comes up, every January, February each season. He can just focus on ball after doing that. I've gone Anthony Simons. So he's paying $6.50. Now, kind of similar reasoning to yours, but I actually didn't look up Cassius Stanley's height. So obviously everyone loves a small guy that has bounce. And if you just look back at Nate Robinson and how entertaining it would be to watch him. But I mean, Anthony can jump out of the gym himself. He's 6'3" with a 41.5-inch vertical, but Cassius has a 44-inch vertical. So if Cassius Stanley is, as you say, 6'1", then that obviously trumps my card of saying he's 196. What's that in feet? No, he's 6'5", Das.
Oy.
Okay, so good. So I can use this
small.
card. Maybe you just look small. Okay, so I can use this card.
And Simons has got the hair. The hair makes him bigger too.
So Simons is 6'3" compared to Stanley 6'5". So I think he will have that on his side. If you look up as well, Simon's highlights, especially, he hasn't really had too many in-game dunks, but pre-game shoot-arounds, you see this guy has pretty nice hops. I'm taking the long odds favorite here because there's no guy that really stands out to me. I mean, last year it was pretty easy to go a Derek Jones or a Aaron Gordon. And what we've learned from last year is no guy's a guarantee. I mean, most people are pretty certain that Aaron Gordon had won it and they felt like he was robbed. So there's absolutely no, and I think Cassius Stanley could be less than $2. I think he could be stupid favorite, like $1.60 or that's.
He was a bit of a Zion out of high school. His high school dunk tapes are ridiculous. He was being seen as a high draft pick because of his dunk tapes in high school. They're insane.
Right. Okay. So there's a lot of hype obviously for Stanley, and that's what's potentially led to the odds being so small. But yeah, I think $6.50 I think is pretty good value there. Obi Toppin is in the middle twos. I think he's $2.50, $2.60. And I mean, Ant could win it. Like I have no doubt about that. Anything can sort of happen, especially in these events. So $6.50 seems a bit high for me. I think there's every chance he could be able to get this one done. So I'll be rooting for that.
I think Simons has that kind of slinkiness to his dunking and his jumping, kind of similar to Ja Morant. Yeah. And I think when you look at Obi Toppin, he's got the power and the strength of like a forward who can destroy the rim, like a Dwight Howard-esque kind of thing. And I think Cassius Stanley is right in the middle. He's got something completely different. So it's good that we're seeing three different kind of profiles of dunkers. It will still be a very fun one to watch, I reckon.
Yeah, that's true. Probably my least favorite event out of the whole thing. But yeah, I think it'll still be enjoyable nonetheless. So people should still tune into that. Yeah. You go?
Mm-hmm. Tough to leave up to the hype of the dunk comp.
Agreed. Yeah. Unless one year LeBron and Zion decide to go in it, then people could go berserk.
Levine as well. Oh man.
Why don't they just do it? Why don't they just 1 year go, look, we'll give you a stupid amount of money, have Levine, maybe bring back Gordon, have Zion, have LeBron. Imagine if those four were in it. Like that would shut it down. Like people wouldn't know what to do with themselves. Okay, so the actual game itself, Das. So the draft has just gone down. We spoke about it pre-pod, how we're both not really fans of the show and how they do it. Look, it's cool how they do a draft. I like the theory behind it, but I think the execution can be a little bit better. At stages, it feels like it's a bit dragged out. Shall
we read out the rosters? Should we read out the rosters?
Yeah,
for the
read out the
fans?
rosters. Yeah. Do you have it handy?
Yeah, I got
Okay.
it in front of me.
Okay,
So
perfect.
this is also going in order, I suppose, from LeBron's pick. So LeBron got to pick first because he had the most votes overall.
Yeah.
In his starting lineup, LeBron's got Giannis with him, and then he was able to pick up Steph. He got my boy Luka, and he got Jokic. So that's the starting five for LeBron. If you go over to Team KD, obviously KD's not playing, so they brought an extra guy in there. He's got Kyrie. His second pick, he went Embiid, and then he picked up Kawhi, and then ended up with Beal and Tatum. So with that kind of starting lineup, I think LeBron's kind of taken the cake there with a much better team. He's got 3 European players, Giannis, Doncic, and Jokic to go with him and Steph. I think that's pretty freaking nasty. And as we go on to the bench players, LeBron went with Dame. So he's got Dame, then Simmons, Chris Paul, and he went pretty early on Jaylen Brown, and then was able to pick up Paul George, and then rounded it out with Sabonis and Gobert. KD's bench looks like his teammate Harden, D-Book, and then he got 2 fancy picks with Zion and Levine back to back, and then he got Randall, and then Vucevic and Donovan Mitchell was the final pick for KD. So 2 very strong teams. Who do you think is going to win this All-Star game?
I think I know who you're going to pick. So I've gone opposite. As soon as I saw where Luka went, I sort of knew where you would be heading towards. So I'm going Durant here. $2.40. I'm sort of rolling with the homie Embiid. It's his year. I think the versatility of Durant's team is actually ridiculous. You have 3 candidates. Look, both rosters are obviously stacked. That's no denying that. But I think you have 3 candidates that can get stupid hot in Levine, Booker, and Donovan Mitchell. Like, they can really change a game. Obviously, the Zion factor is awesome. You have Vooch and Randall that at least are both playmaking bigs. They can pass the ball pretty well. Randall's
shoot the ball well this year.
Can shoot the ball well.
The 3 great.
Definitely.
Sabonis Gobert, not shooters.
No, exactly. Randall's a bit more fluid than Vooch in terms of getting up and down, but as you say, at least can both still space the floor and shoot it. And then you've got 3 guys in Harden, Kyrie, and Beal that can obviously create something from nothing. So there's a lot of elements to this Durant team, and I think there's a lot to like. And I think $2.40 in an All-Star game. This isn't last year where Giannis, everyone was basically like, what is this guy doing? Has he ever put a team together in his life? I don't think it's that bad. I think the Durant team is still pretty stacked, and it'll be quite a competitive match. And honestly, I think if you have to come down to a crunch 5 for both teams, it'll be very interesting to see who gets the cut. I think potentially one of Levine, Booker, or Mitchell could find their way in that starting lineup if they're extremely hot.
Harden, Kyrie backcourt is what they're going to go with.
To finish. So it'd be Harden, Kyrie. Do you think Embiid?
Kawhi, definitely Embiid. And then, I don't know, maybe Beal, maybe one of those guys could go off Booker or Zion or Levine.
Okay. All right. So to me, that makes it pretty, well, that's the element I didn't mention. Thanks for the Kawhi element. There's a guy in there that's
MVP last year.
Exactly. So he's shown he's someone who's capable of at least putting in effort when a lot of guys don't normally, and especially this year, we've sort of seen it. Part of it is, man, I wonder if I'll get tricked by LeBron again. Like, I was baited before the season thinking he was going to rest, thinking he was going to chill. And, he hadn't missed a game until that Sacramento back-to-back the other day. But I've got to think this one, he won't try, surely. If he goes in saying, I don't want to be there and all this stuff, and then he does it again, like, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, like, stuff you, LeBron. If he wrecks me again, who knows? Who knows with that guy? But
I think he wants regular season MVP. Yeah, I think he'll definitely be cruising. The shortest off season ever for him. I think he'll be cruising for sure. That's why I picked Giannis, I reckon, because Giannis is basically a number 1 pick. Giannis he'll be pushing the tempo for them. He'll be kind of the motor for the team, and he's got Simmons on the bench, so they're going to be playing extremely hard. Those 2 players. I think that's probably the key to what he was thinking with this kind of selection. And I suppose when you come down to the MVP discussion, I think Giannis has got to be at the forefront. I know that AD was the clutch player who hit the game-winning, free throws at the end of the All-Star game last year. Like LeBron was able to go to AD in the post and draw a foul or get an easy bucket at the end of the game. So no AD, LeBron's team doesn't look as strong in the post now. So I'm thinking it's a pretty good shout that Embiid, might take over down the stretch and be that MVP. I think Giannis is potentially the guy if Team LeBron do get the win. That could be the MVP, because he might not get a real chance at the league MVP this season.
Yep.
And then the two guys who are just so fun to watch, have amazing handles, and can just dazzle in the All-Star game. Kyrie for KD's team and Steph for LeBron's team. I think those two are outside chances at MVP. What do you reckon?
Well, I only had one guy there. So you had a list, which was great. I only had one guy, and that's Kyrie. So I think he could go off. He's as much as people, hate him for different periods when, if he's really weird with the media and he's a bit of a kooky thinker and, he goes disappearing for 2 weeks or 3 weeks and no one knows where he is. Like that's normally forgotten in the middle of an All-Star game when, he's crossing up guys. He's another candidate that can get hot from deep. We've seen him do it in the past in a All-Star type event. We saw with the rookie challenge, him and Dion Waiters that year going back and forth, hitting shots. So I think fans will really enjoy his ball handling. The fact that, as you say, it is a fan's vote that probably rules out a guy like Harden specifically. So you've really got to pick a starter for the most part in these events. I guess Westbrook's the only exception to that in the past. He's won MVP before off the bench, just being an absolute nutcase that he is. But Kyrie is the odds aren't out for him yet, but I'd be curious to see what they are. And there's an element that since Harden's come across, he seems to be a lot happier. Kyrie, you can see him really enjoying basketball at the moment, and be interesting to see how he performs in this matchup.
Maybe we'll post our predictions the day on All-Star Monday.
Yeah, we will. I'll put together a graphic similar to what we did for trying to predict the All-Star reserves before they were announced. So I'll put together a graphic for that to go out before Monday's festivities take place. But just to go over it. So you have Team LeBron winning or no?
Team LeBron winning and Giannis MVP.
Yeah. Okay. Why do you think?
Why do I think LeBron?
Why do you think LeBron? Yeah.
I just like the starting lineup a lot more.
Okay.
I like Steph and Doncic together with Jokic making passes, and then you've got a dominant defensive front court with Giannis and LeBron. I just think it doesn't matter how good Team KD plays if that team's clicking. And I think Doncic is a bit of the key because he was quite nervous, didn't really play his natural game in the All-Star game last year. I think he feels more comfortable, and I think he'll take over.
Well, he had a lot to do last year, did he not? Doncic was he in he wasn't in the 3-point contest, but he was in the
Rising Stars.
And did was he in another contest? No,
I don't think so. Just that, but just
I feel like he had a busy
whole hype around being there was a lot. Yeah, he was the captain of the team, and Dirk was the coach. It was just that was kind of his key game, and then by the time it got to Monday, he was just a bit, not really into it as much. But I think this will be good for him. I think he'll have a big game.
That's a good point. So second All-Star appearance. So he's probably much more used to.
Team LeBron's never lost, So I'd be silly to bet again. If I was tipping, I'd be tipping Team LeBron. Yeah, that's the trump card you have here. LeBron's team has a history of continuously winning. So that's the thing I've got going against me. But anyway, maybe this is the first of non-LeBron teams getting it done. So we'll have to see. No fans there, right? That's probably a dumb question, but anything in limited capacity or are they trying to really make it a bubble? I think it is limited capacity. I think they'll have, similar to the Hawks games, they have quite a few people courtside, and then the upper bowl they'll try to fill. So I think there will still be some noise and some atmosphere for sure.
I wonder if the blondie that was going at LeBron in that Hawks game will be there. Do you reckon she'll get let back in?
Maybe KD find a way to get her in the stadium.
Yes, when LeBron's got an Elam ending, LeBron has to make 2 free throws, bring her in, bring in the Karen. Yeah, everyone loved that. But yeah, that'd be a good wrinkle for sure. Okay, so that's awesome. Looking forward to that. As I said, we'll put out a graphic with our predictions, see how we go. So we'll finish this off, Das, with, we normally do locks of the day, but because there's obviously a bit of a break, we'll finish by giving off a second half lock. So it can be anything. It can be Embiid MVP. I mean, that's a lock. It can be anything really you want, Das, just something that you think will occur in the second half of the season. So you can have the first stab at this if you want.
Okay, all right. So I've got 3 here that I like, but I'll
give
go
them
with
all. Give them all out.
Give them all. I'll go.
Yeah,
my,
why
my
not?
first one that I think is an absolute lock is that Sacramento won't make the playoffs,
Wow.
and I think Walton won't last the season. I think the more I watch them, it's still very confusing, and they're a team that are known to make kind of silly moves or just any moves at all with kind of no reasoning behind it. So that's my main lock. I like Sacramento. I like some of their players, but it's just not working right now. I don't think there's any chance with the depth in the West. I don't think there's any chance.
Yeah.
My second lock goes over to the Eastern Conference, and the more I'm watching this Russ ball in connection with Beal being the best scorer in the NBA, I think they'll get the 8th seed. I think they're not a team that you want to play in a play-in game. I reckon if they get rolling as well, if Russ starts to turn around is shooting a little bit, then they could roll into the Eastern Conference playoffs, I reckon, just knowing how wide open it is. I feel like Westbrook is averaging a triple-double but not playing his best ball, and they're right there, So I think the Wizards, they're an interesting team and sometimes very frustrating to look at, but I think they can get the 8th seed. I think that's pretty close to a lock for me.
It's a good shout.
And the final one, which is just a bit of fun, but I think it needs to happen because these two players' careers are just dying right now. I think Andre Drummond and Blake Griffin, I think they both get bought out. Yep. And as a little tidbit, I think one of them is going to end up on Brooklyn, and I think one of them is going to end up with the Lakers. The two contenders are going to be the ones that get the buyout guys.
Do you know which one's which? Do you have a prediction? Do you think it's Drummond to Brooklyn?
Yeah, I think so. And I actually don't mind Blake on the Lakers. You know, they've got a really good defensive team, and he's the type of guy who they could hide defensively. He could add a bit of veteran savvy. And I don't really get the criticism of Griffin's shooting. I think if he's open on a good team when they're moving the ball for 3, he's deadly. I think he is a good shooter. And in a team, I feel like he would have a lot of energy going back to LA, rivalry against his old Clippers team. I think that would be a good fit for Blake if he does get bought out.
Yeah. Well, if he joined the Lakers, it feels like he would immediately jump up the depth chart over a guy like who would potentially get minutes. But
Marquise
maybe
Morris.
Yeah. That's the easy pick. Yeah. So just come in, give 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And then if you're hitting your deep ball really well, maybe you play more minutes down the stretch if you're contributing. So that's a good shout. It's a very low risk move for a team like the Lakers.
It's a lot of money to get bought out though. That's the only hurdle. A lot of money.
Yeah. Okay. My second half lock, a little bit boring, but I mean, I think there's still potential that it could go south. So I wouldn't say it's, an absolute guarantee, but I feel confident. I think Utah will end up with the best record in the NBA. They have a 3-game lead at the moment on, I think it's Brooklyn who's behind them. No, it can't be.
Yeah.
Because Philly's got a better record than him. I can't think of who's second, but they've got a 3-game lead on whoever's second. They're a team that's built, we know, at least for the regular season. There's obviously plenty of doubters about how they'll go in the playoffs. I'm a believer. You're a little bit skeptical, but at least for the regular season, they're too deep, and the ball they play is way too entertaining. The ball moves. You hear people make comparisons to that 2014 Spurs team where the ball just did all the moving, and 3 points were just basically guarantee every possession, or worst case, you're getting a good look from deep. You've got that defensive anchor in a guy like Gobert. You've got good depth, especially for that center spot with Derek Favors. We've spoken about him a little bit, but he was super impactful for that Pelicans team last year. He was, you can say potentially was more impactful for that team defensively when he came back from injury, as opposed to when Zion finally got healthy, but he's really good to have off the bench. We know about Jordan Clarkson, biggest green light in the NBA. Biggest six man for sure. Biggest difference I've seen between previous seasons and this one is when his outside shot isn't falling. He's got a little floater game to him. He uses ball handling to get to the rim. He's not a guy that, will consistently settle for the outside jumper. Sure, he'll take it if it's there, but he's not a guy that keeps pressing when his shot isn't falling. He finds other ways to get it done, which is something I haven't seen him do in the past. All of that stuff adds another dynamic. You've spoken about Mike Conley being much better this year, but it does come down to Donovan Mitchell. But I at least think for the regular season, like they're built to just smoke teams, as we've seen them, go. Did they win 18 out of 21 or 19 out of 20 before, at home, before they went on the bit of the road trip?
I think it was 19 or 20. And I think you got to look at their health. They've been extremely healthy.
Yeah.
And coming into the All-Star break, that's great. They're often been a team who has actually finished the season stronger coming out of the All-Star break. They really got at home, they're 15-2. So they're dominating home court advantage. So I think that's a really good shout there. They're clear right now. If you believe it or not, Phoenix are second in the league right now.
Phoenix, that's right. They've gone on a real run recently. They're killing it.
But they're 3 games behind Utah. So a 3-game lead going into the All-Star break, completely healthy roster, great continuity. I think, that's a good shout. I think Utah are poised to be that team that's going to lead from the front this year.
And they haven't been affected by COVID, have they? I can't remember a time where none of their guys have gotten it, or have they?
Ironically, Gobert kind of started the wave of COVID last season. And
exactly.
Their whole team has been completely healthy with no COVID this year. I can't think of any of them. Even their bench is intact, all of them.
Maybe they've been affected by like another team having COVID and they've had a game postponed, but I don't think them themselves have had a guy that, whether they...
Utah's it's too far away from everything. They're isolated.
Yeah. Corona's like, stuff it. I can't be bothered to travel there. Yeah, for sure. That probably wraps it up then. I think that's a good way to finish it off.
Like that look.
We'll see how that goes. So we'll keep that in the back pocket.
We could say, I'd say it could be, actually it'll be very close between Houston, Detroit, and Minnesota, who's going to be that bottom team in the league.
Oh, good call.
If you had to make a pick, who's gonna be last? Cleveland are also fighting their way down to the bottom as well. I think
Houston.
Minnesota,
I'd say Houston.
Yeah, Houston are sellers. I think they're sellers at the deadline. They're going to bottom out and try to get number 1 pick. Well, Minnesota have.
They can't. OKC has Houston's pick. It's a pick swap.
Oh, that's
so
tough.
at least
Minnesota need to be there, so they should be tanking.
That's a much better shout. You're right. So that's the worrying thing about Houston is, Sam Presti and OKC is probably rubbing his hands together. The more and more Houston lose. At least Houston will get a first round pick this year. They haven't had one in the last few years. So even if the pick swap does happen, but it'd be brutal if Houston end up, bottom 3 and they have to swap it out for like the 11th or 12th pick. But we'll have to see how that goes. And I was thinking about this the other day. If Houston keep, struggling over this next 2-3 week period before the trade deadline, does OKC think, maybe we hold on to Horford and George Hill and keep, building this chemistry and helping our young guys, Bazley, Lou Dort, SGA. Let's keep winning games.
Build it around Shea.
There's no real point to try and drive things to the bottom when Houston are doing that for us. So, but then I think again, it's Sam Presti, the asset king. Like all he wants is first round picks. Like he wants more chances at, getting an absolute stud in the draft. So I then think if someone's going to offer a first round pick for Al Horford or George Hill, he's probably going to be like, yes. So
I think it's not as bad if you're a stud player and you are on the move potentially or on the market to be traded. I think you get traded to Cleveland, your head goes, you get traded to Orlando, you go, you get traded to Detroit or Minnesota, you're like, wow, this is terrible. I think people aren't as low on getting traded to Oklahoma City just because of the way that they've been able to play the last couple of seasons. The way they've been able to rebound from losing Durant, Harden, and Westbrook. Right. It's not like they're contending right now, but I don't think they're like a really depressing place to be. So I think that's interesting. Presti's got him in a great spot.
Yeah, definitely. Now we'll have to do we'll definitely do a trade deadline preview. I think that's last week of March. So we'll obviously hear about a lot more stuff that goes down, whether it be someone breaking any sort of news about someone demanding a trade or any of that sort of stuff that we can then cover.
our listeners should slide into the DMs if you got something that you're interested in, trade that you want us to talk about, a guy that you think's on the move. We'd love to hear from you guys.
Yeah, 100%. Great shout. Okay, perfect. Well, that's a good way to end things, wrap it up. We'll definitely be, Darcy and I will definitely be tuning into that All-Star Monday, see how it goes, see how our picks are. And
keep an eye out.
Exactly. Keep an eye. And does he finish? Oh, okay. Is it just one and done?
Skills challenge. Okay.
Oh, there we go. Okay. 50%.
Lap of honor.
Okay.
Hopefully that's where our locks end up.
For sure. Well, we both did a double lock today, so we'll have to check now and see how they go. But yeah, until next time, Das, take it easy. Speak soon.
Peace out, guys.